Hey guys, what do you get when you mix furry characters with dark, evil, nightmarish monsters? Well, yeah, that can happen. But we're not talking about World of Warcraft today. No, today we're going to talk about something really special. We are going to be looking at a webcomic / graphic novel that's so awesome and very well made that I can't believe I didn't go into this sooner. This is Dreamkeepers. Now, long ago, I did a review on Slightly Damned, a webcomic that I felt was so good it made me break seasonal tradition by reviewing it not long after reading through what was there. And I believe I said this was the one piece of webcomics for me. Well then, Dreamkeepers must be the Full Metal Alchemist of webcomics, or rather graphic novels. Still, this is a story that, despite its seemingly charming design and humor, it can be as dark and graphic as it can be, and it's just enough to where it can still be engaging. Truth be told, I did know about its existence through a quick glance of its website years ago, but like with other webcomics I wanted to maybe review, I couldn't go through with it because I wasn't in the right mindset that I could pull off these sort of reviews. It was somewhat on the back burner of my mind nonetheless, but I just didn't think I could do it. However, the creators of this series, David and Liz Lilly, did offer me and various other reviewers review copies to look at, and as I didn't have anything planned for around this point yet, I decided I could give it a go, and so here we are. Now, what I have to say about the series thus far only pertains to the first 3 volumes, as well as some extra material found on their website. And it is 100% my honest opinion as to what I think of the material presented. But do know this, I wouldn't click away just because of what I already mentioned. Just relax, and let me guide you along. For this is Dreamkeepers, the graphic novel saga.
So no one told you life was gonna be this way. Your job's a joke, you broke, your love life's the away. It's like you're always stuck in second gear, when it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your year. But I'll be there for you when the rain starts to fall. I'll be there for you when the feeling goes. I'll be there for you 'cause you're there for me too.
The dream world is a mysterious reality that parallels our own. Humans cannot enter this reality. We can only catch fleeting glimpses of it through our dreaming, unconscious minds. Dark things lurk in this fantasy world, however, and we are vulnerable while we sleep. They thirst to cross from their world into our unconscious and defenseless minds, using our dreams as the bridge. The only thing blocking their path is the existence of the Dreamkeepers. This is just a small excerpt from the first volume that describes a lot of what there is to come, of how dark forces from another world, known as the Nightmare, threaten us whether we know it or not, and that the Dreamkeepers, residents of that reality that are tied directly to us to the point where they pretty much are us, ensure our own protection by keeping them at bay, or so it should have been. The story within the dream world takes place in the large city known as Andaruna, a seemingly peaceful civilization with technology far surpassing our own, where its people have long forgotten about the existence of the Nightmare and live out normal lives. But it goes far from normal for 5 of our main characters, as they eventually get pulled into an ongoing series of events that could determine the very fate of the world. The main characters include Mace, a young orphan alongside his brother, Whip, who are known for their various pranks, but with something mysterious that draws the Nightmare to them. Lilith, as well as her younger sister Nama, who are also pulled in due to circumstances involving another resident of the tower. And lastly, Bast, an often quiet but very serious individual with a dark past who seemingly already knows about some things going on, but does what he can to help the ones he considers his friends. There are other characters to make note of, but we'll go over them as we come. But right now I have to say, holy crap, this artwork is gorgeous. Now I can't say I'm an expert in the kind of techniques and stylings that artists will have in drawing, but I can say the actual art style is very well done, encompassing a lot of different styles as its influence. Like, according to their FAQ, they take after series like the webcomic Lackadaisy, Disney films, works from Akira Toriyama that help inspire the big battles in this story. There's even some Tim Burton inspired designs, especially with the Nightmare. I swear, if he had anything to do with this series, I could totally see this being something he'd made. They all come well together to create this rather unique fantasy world. One that has its own fantasy-like creatures, you know, in addition to the animal-like Dreamkeepers and the monster-like Nightmare, a magic system involving power that each Dreamkeeper has and all come in a unique variety, an architecture and culture that feels modern, yet feels believable for the kind of fantasy world they're going for, which is more than I can say for Final Fantasy 15, because at least this one has a magic versus technology theme going on, where Dreamkeepers want powers to be usable, while the government tries to limit its use with its recently instated military power. 15 just has guys with magic trying to steal a magic crystal in a seemingly realistic setting. Not very interesting. It also helps that this world has a very interesting history and layout, like the ocean that seems to go on forever, not knowing what lies beyond the city, and established areas of the world map. There's a lot of mystery to this world, and it easily allows itself for potential in the world building area. But enough gushing on art style and how fascinating the world is. Why don't we actually get into the individual volumes and see what makes them tick? Volume 1, naturally enough, brings together our main cast while prepping us for an ongoing story that will most likely last till the end. Unlike Slightly Damned, which again, like One Piece, is set more on whatever kind of adventure can be found in the individual story arcs, while hinting at a long-term event on the sideline. Here, we're constantly a part of it the moment we lay eyes on what I presume will be the final boss of the story. And if you thought these cute-looking cartoon animals would be immune to the constant use of death, and instead go by Disney death logic, nope! First 3 pages into the actual story, and we see a woman get sacrificed to awaken the Lord of all Nightmares. Welcome to the graphic novel world, kids! In establishing our main cast, we begin with the lead character, Mace. As an orphan, he takes up being the prankster of the orphanage, often causing trouble for others whenever they pick on him or his close friend Paige. Only if it happens to someone like, say, Groon, your caretaker of this place. After becoming the target of a horny Transcopus slob, mistaking him for a female, causing it to, well... Anyway, Mace gets the ultimate punishment, an old-fashioned beating. Jeez, the worst Naruto ever got was being tied to a pole without lunch. How did this guy become a caretaker for kids if this is how he reacts? While out getting some fermente for him, Mace ends up meeting Lilith, who he ends up taking a liking for despite being a few years younger than her, though how can you blame him? Lilith to me is like Estelle from Tales of Vesperia, in that she's a bookworm who many can see as being very pretty and very kind, and as the story goes on, she's put into situations that go beyond what she's used to, but will end up having to adapt down the line. Whereas Mace, so far, doesn't come off as entirely like Naruto in the obnoxious prankster wanting attention area. He's more like a wannabe hero to the other kids for doing these whenever life gets hard on them, since, to be fair, they don't have the best living conditions. Also, the things that will, or have already happened to him, do make him more sympathetic than most characters of his type. Therefore, I shall give him the voice of Yuri Lowenthal, and Lilith the voice of Daniel Judovitz. Yes, I will be doing this, just like the cartoon hero does during his Phoenix Wright retrospective. School isn't that much better for him, as trouble seems to find him no matter where he goes, though in this case, inadvertently. Meeting Bast for the first time, he tries asking him to move from his locker, but doesn't. so he tries a little force, which gets him into a fight and into detention. Now, before you say Bast is Sasuke and is the rival character, don't. Bast may have a dark past, has a similar interest in Lilith, and that violent outburst of his could say a few things on his personal behavior, but I see him as being more like Shinjiro from Persona 3, thus earning him the voice of Grant George. Mainly for things he does during the later volumes, but for now, he's just not very approachable. Unlike the last of our main cast, Nama. Like I said, she's the sister to Lilith, even though she looks more like a devil child with diamond eyes. And like Mace, she can be quite a troublemaker, though she's a bit more mischievous given she's a teenager, and her fascination for trouble just makes her fun to watch over time. But there's more to her than that, for as we see later on, she, unlike her sister, is often locked away in her room because of her father, for reasons involving an affair he had, and now this is to cover up said fact. The things we see regarding her strained relationship are another part of what makes her interesting to read. I think Tara Strong would go great with her. Anyway, the worst possible thing happens to Mace as he is attacked by one of the nightmare creatures, barely managing to fend it off and escape it, only to discover that while he was out of commission, it got his best friend. And guess who gets accused of murder?
Guilty as
As to how the girls get involved in this escalating event? Well, Nama overhears from her father's fiancé, Tinsel, about how she and an associate named Ravat are planning to kill someone, which she tells Lilith about, but because Tinsel noticed her leaving their conversation, she decides it'd be better to just kill the two now than wait later because, as it turns out, she and Ravat are what's called Dark Dreamkeepers, a term given to those who serve the nightmare, but more on them later. During the fight, Nama awakens to her own power and saves her sister before escaping. Eventually, all three meet under one roof as they get to meet the uncle of the two sisters, Igrath Winters, who helps patch the two while promising to tell them all about what the heck is going on. So ends Volume 1, and so far the story does a good job setting things up for down the line. It sets up the stakes, and things can only get more interesting starting with Volume 2, where we learn about a third Dark Dreamkeeper named Wisp, who as it turns out is working closely with another orphan that Mace knew, Randy, and how they all seem to work for this mysterious being named Nabonidus, that as we later find out has been keeping tabs on Mace especially for quite some time. Also, it seems the government is trying to catch Igrath for some reason, so he is forced to teleport the kids away to another location, an old fortress inside the Starfall Mountains, where they get caught up on what happened before regarding Paige and how it's even possible that the Sandman, as they were calling it, was wearing large boots at the time, except the Nightmare wasn't wearing boots, so who did it? Among things, we learned that people with powers are banishable by law, leaving you to wonder what kind of political reasoning there is to prohibit power use and why Nightmare news is never brought up by anyone except for these guys. Speaking of Nightmare, the designs get more freaky as we go, as we see Wisp riding a giant nightmare whose tongue is its own face. They call it Smiley. Not that Smiley! This Smiley is destructive, horrifying, and with a sticky tongue. Too many ways to die, either by that or Wisp and her power that lets her clone herself as part of it. And it is so good as it gives us more action to look at. That's another thing too, is that the action scenes flow very well and have a lot going on, but just enough to where they don't particularly drag out the chapter. And might I say, Wisp is very enjoyable, having multiple personalities, each distinguished by eye color, and can even take up their own clone whenever she splits. She's so sporadic and random, it's all so fun. After escaping, they find time to discuss the possibility that these ancient wars Igrath mentioned might lead to the possibility that nightmares are real. But more important issues strike up.
I have to pee! I'm gonna pee right here!